Hello, everyone. Welcome to the November 2023 Carbon Leadership Forum of Boston Northeast Reuse Group meeting. Today, we are joined by Elaine and Matthew of ChopValue, a circular economy resource and vendor with a microfactory very close in the Boston area. Today, we're looking to highlight what developments are currently going on when it comes to material circularity and really sometimes how underutilized and ignorant the industry can be of these opportunities. So today we're hoping to highlight a regional resource to not only learn some knowledge about it in the process, but hopefully look to grow and what else can be done in the design space all the way through to construction and then end of life. Before we get to the speakers, Laurel, anything to tell the group?
No, let's do it.
Awesome. So we'll get into the presentation. There'll be a 10 to 15 minute Q&A afterwards. And then before we close, Laurel and I will give some updates on the December meeting and then above and beyond in 2024. But I will hand it over to Elaine now. I see she's sharing the screen. Elaine, Matthew, take it away.
All right, my computer is so slow, so my mute button is not the most responsive, but I assume you all can hear me now. Hello, and thanks so much for your interest in our little company, ChopValue. So as you see on this opening screen, this is just kind of a something to get your brain thinking about what we're talking about today. So we estimate that there are about 50,000 chopsticks that are thrown away every day in Boston. And if you think about the journey of the chopstick, the vast majority of them, I think some in the 90th percentile, are manufactured in Asia. They travel all the way across the world to us. They get trucked across the US, and then we use them for about 20 minutes in a restaurant or in our takeout, or we don't use them at all because we've asked to not get them and we still get them. And so we are really trying to flip the script on that and figure out what can we do with this material that is really usable and valuable and not have people throw them away and put them back into circulation. So you'll hear more about that momentarily. All right, so I think I might have to be in a different screen to advance this. Here we go. Okay, so just super quickly about myself and Matthew. I came to manufacturing and sustainability as a total COVID career change. I spent the first half of my career, 20 years in nonprofit and executive management, doing operations, HR, career development type stuff. Completely burned out the nonprofit and wanted to do something much more locally focused, really knew that I wanted to do something in sustainability, wanted to be working with my hands, and I have young kids, so I wanted to do something that they could really connect with a bit more. So made the pivot to ChopValue. I saw a Business Insider YouTube video about the company, and I reached out to the CEO and learned that he was in the process of expanding through franchising, and looked into it, and it felt like the right next fit for me. We've been in production for just over a year now, and it's been a pretty wild ride, which I'm excited to tell you about. But let me hand it over to Matthew for a sec to share about himself.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. My name is Matthew. My professional background is more museum installation from some other careers that I've been in, along with I have my undergrad degree from Mass Art, and then a kind of long-standing family tradition of being a woodworker. So needless to say, it was kind of the perfect culmination when Elaine and I got together a year ago to get this thing up off the ground. So it's been a fantastic kind of use of all those skills. And it's definitely been, as Elaine said, one wild ride. So we're happy to share it with all you.
Great, thanks, Matthew. You know, we don't have to preach to the choir in this group. The big problems that we're trying to tackle here at ChopValue really are that there's exponential waste, which is getting even more exponential as we go along. And so trying to figure out new ways of doing something with waste that is productive and not just throwing things away and having the story end there. The second problem is that we have really ambitious net zero targets, which is great. And with, I think, the majority of the conversation around that net zero being in clean energy as it should be, I do actually think there's a lot of room for sustainable procurement as a part of that net zero equation that isn't really being talked about as much as it should be. So that's kind of, those are the problems we're trying to tackle. And then the way that we're doing it is we are a growing circular solution here. So you see kind of our circular imagery here on the right. What we do is we do something that we call urban harvest. So we really go out into our own community. We're collecting chopsticks after they've been used. So we're disrupting that pathway of the chopstick to the landfill. And then we divert that used chopstick. We bring it to our own microfactory here. We're in Charlestown, which is a part of Boston. And then and we are remanufacturing them into products and giving them a second. So the idea is that we'll take that useful life of the chopstick that was intended to be about 20 minutes, and we extend that to hopefully 20 years in the form of a table or some other sort of furnishing thing. It all started with this guy. His name is Felix Bach, and he created ChopValue. He created the process. He created the material. He is a woodworker by trade, and then he went to grad school and studied innovation in composites, specifically focused on bamboo. So I think it's probably safe to say there's probably no better person in the world to try to come up with this. And so he just played around with the material. He tried to figure out what to do. He invented a bunch of machines that would kind of help us get it through what we call our press line, to convert the material from a raw chopstick into a tile. And we'll talk about that process in just a second. But the resulting material has been tested. It actually has a hardness rating that's stronger than oak and maple, and it's as durable as teak. So we really, really believe that this could have a lot of impact within the furnishings and interior spaces. So what does the process look like? So we bring, we send out our truck 5 days a week. We're working with our restaurant partners all over Boston. We're collecting, they do most of the separation for us. So they're separating out the used chopsticks. We bring them here to our microfactory, and if you start on the left, the first thing we do is we sort them out. So we're taking out any sort of contamination in that recycling stream. There are a very small amount of pine chopsticks in the world. Most of them are bamboo. So if we see any pine, we'll pull it out because we just press one type of wood together. And then we quickly orient them with this machine that you see. It's kind of our shaker table on the left. We just orient them into bundles, all kind of going the same way before we load them into these metal mesh baskets. So now we're in the second photo, and in those mesh baskets, we'll kind of close up that basket and dip it into a water-based resin. And so we want that water-based resin so that it's non-toxic and food safe for some of our products, but we also obviously like the lower environmental impact of having a water-based resin that is essentially the binder for our tiles. After they've been dipped in the resin, we let the excess drip off, try to recapture as much of that as possible and reuse it. They will go onto commercial baking trays is what it really looks like. So we'll spread them out on these trays. We'll put them into this commercial oven that we have, and it'll bake on a low heat for about 12 hours. And what that does is it dries out the chopsticks, it dries out the resin, and evaporates about half of the water content of the bamboo, going from about 16% water content to 8%, stabilizing the material even further. And then after the 12-hour drying cycle, we'll then start to load them into these press trays. That's what you see in the third photo here. So we weigh out as many chopsticks as we want for the thickness of the tile that we're pressing that day. We align them all neatly on one end to reduce the amount of waste that we need to create when we're trimming the ends. And then we do this press cycle, short cycles of anywhere from 6 minutes to 12 minutes, I think, depending on the thickness of the tile. And then so through that process in the press, you've got extreme pressure, heat, and steam that are then creating our raw tile, which you see on the right in this photo. And I also have one here that I can show you. You can see my, I cannot see myself, but this is a raw tile that we have to use. And then it gets to kind of the manufacturing and the microfactory. So we have a microfactory here in Boston. It's about 6,000 square feet. 6,000 square feet is about twice as much as what is called for in order to start one of these microfactories. That just happened because that was the space that was available. When I was looking last summer for space, there was really not a lot of options. So that's how we ended up with this particular space. We're glad that we have the extra space for some storage now. But each microfactory is essentially small. And the idea for ChopValue to expand through franchising was, number one, Felix wanted to empower local ownership. Felt like local owners would really know their markets and their communities the best and be the best position to kind of build this story and this brand and this process and the inspiration locally. And then secondly, just really practically, distributed manufacturing is so much better for the environment and sustainability than centralized manufacturing. We're reducing shipping costs. In most cases, our clients are local, and so if they're local, we'll kind of incorporate it into our recycling route. And if I get an order from Jamaica Plain, I'll say, you know, hey, we're going to be in JP next Tuesday picking up chopsticks. Can you wait until then? And we'll just drop it off while we're in the neighborhood. So we're really trying to do as much as we can with that locality to kind of minimize the impact there as well. Here you see where there are current ChopValue microfactories, and the gray ones are coming online soon. So actually that gray one in Bali should probably be blue now. They are operational. Oh, that's not Bali, sorry. Geography class. All right, so what does it look like in Boston? We have 80 collection partners, which are mostly restaurants. We are piloting something in 2 dining halls at MIT, and we're working with Takeda at their dining hall in one of their buildings in Kendall Square. But the rest are restaurants. We're collecting 800 pounds a week, and that translates into about 120,000 chopsticks per week. So we're not really even scratching the surface of what we think is out there and able to be reclaimed, but it's working for us and what we're able to process currently to meet our demand. And what this adds up to really staggeringly, I think, is 20 tons annually that we're diverting from local landfills just from these tiny little chopsticks that otherwise would be thrown away. On the right, you see some of our collection partners that have been just really wonderful. They've been with us, you know, for over a year now, about a year and a half, and it's just been going really well. So it's kind of a win-win all across. They like getting the chopsticks out of their waste stream. It makes their trash a lot lighter. It makes their trash bags a lot cleaner. They're not getting holes poked in their bags, and we're picking it up for free. So, so that's all working really smoothly and has been great relationships so far. This is an example of the 3 types of products that we make. So on the left, we do a lot of corporate gifting, especially at this time of year, and some e-commerce through small kind of homewares and home goods, all laser engraved. As you see, JP Morgan is one of our largest clients. We're doing kind of many different gifting programs with them. The second category is furniture, and that includes kind of office furniture as well as home furniture. This is an example of a rolling cabinet. We did 20 of them for Boston City Hall this year, which was really exciting. And behind that, you see an adjustable height desk. And then the third category is all custom stuff. So this is architectural features, interior features. These are some stair treads that have gone into a residential home, but there are commercial kind of feature walls behind me. You can see a small example of what a feature wall might look like in large scale. We're doing a lot of custom projects as well. We're doing signage and things like that. So one company has us doing all of their well-being and their sustainability signage, little factoids about well-being and sustainability as that company wants to kind of share it with their employees. And we're doing those signs all over. So we're trying to get really creative about what we can do with this material, and more importantly, what can we replace a virgin material or non-natural material with this carbon negative material that we have. The applications are pretty broad, so we can do residential, as you've seen, office environments as well, hospitality, education, and public spaces. So as you likely know, there's a big focus on supplier diversity as well as sustainable procurement, particularly in Massachusetts in the public space. We are certified as women and minority owned, so we're trying to really help companies and cities and towns hit those goals that they have. And then here I just have a bunch of examples of other kind of applications of the product in larger scale. What you see on the left we call is a zero waste table, which makes a beautiful kind of dining table or conference room table. These are all offcuts from other products that we have that we try to save as much as possible and put it together in something that can still be used. So we really like that. Makes a really cool statement piece. These are examples of feature walls that we have going on with the slats made out of material on the left. And then on the right, we've got a laser engraver as well. So we do a lot with that on the material as well. So logo walls and things like that are getting some interest as well. This is a residential example here with the wall covered in our material, including the doors, and example of some clients that we have served. So I'll kind of pause here. And probably stop sharing so I can see you again. And happy to just jump into discussion, take any questions you have, feedback, comments, all that good stuff.
Well, thank you, Elaine. I would say if anyone has any questions, you just use like the raise hand feature. The one question I did have to start off though is, Elaine, a couple weeks ago, as part of the Circular Cities week, I spoke on a panel at ChopValue, and I might have asked this, but I'll ask it for this group. What do you think is the most unrealized use of? We went over some kind of architectural features, but I'd be curious to ask you. Talking to the AEC industry, a lot of commercial designers, things like that here. What do you think is the most unrealized benefit of your product?
You know, I mean, I think there are a lot of benefits that we have here. So we're talking with one of our restaurant partners about doing all of the tables for they're planning on opening 2 new locations, and they already recycle their chopsticks with that. So first of all, I think the story is really compelling for people, the circularity of that, and being able to call them a closed loop partner is what we say. So not only are you recycling your chopsticks with this, you're buying back the finished product in the form of carbon negative tables, which is really, really compelling. So I think there's a benefit there to that. The interesting thing that I think is, you know, we're talking with the architects on that project, and they're saying that, yeah, your tabletops are completely comparable price-wise to solid white oak tabletops. So why wouldn't you do something like that, especially through local? You know, we're manufacturing it locally, we're delivering it for free, we're literally driving it over. And if it is that local, we don't charge a fee as much as possible for our partners. And again, as I said before, you know, you're hitting supplier diversity goals, you're hitting sustainable procurement goals, and it's all kind of the community staying in the community or the region is what we're going for.
I'll open it up to Jean.
I wondered how you're handling fire codes or fire treatment on your wall treatments. And then my second question was, if we were buying tables for clients or treatments, what's the lead time?
Yep, thank you, Jean. Fire, we're discussing with individual architects as we get onto projects, and it just depends, I'm sure as you know, on where is the wall going, what is required. The rating of our material as is a B rating, and then we can also use a fire-coated ply as a substrate if that is required. In some cases, it's considered, you know, part of a wall. It's certainly not structural, it's going on to a structural piece, so there might be some wiggle room on that, but it really just depends on the comfort of each project and what they're doing. In terms of lead times on tables, that really depends. We do, you know, if it's a commercial application, we would definitely want to send it out to our finisher and make sure that we're getting that commercial coating on it just to seal it and protect it from the water. That adds a little bit of lead time, but I think we've been really in the 4 to 6 week range. If it's a very large order, we would ask for more lead time than that, but I think we're pretty competitive on lead time as well. And that's also being local and having our material sourced locally. We're not getting gummed up in all this global supply chain stuff.
Susan?
Thank you, Michael. Congratulations. This is fantastic. I'm from the city of Boston. I've worked for the city for, I don't know, 20, almost 30 years and in public works, and now I'm in the environment department, but kudos, terrific. I'm curious about how you're recruiting your feedstock of chopsticks. Do you supply collection barrels, etc.? And then also, are you concerned about balancing the supply and the supply of the chopstick versus the demand for your end products? Because we got a lot of, I know you have what, 80, and I don't know how many of those are Boston, but yeah, I bet there's a good amount of supply here in the city.
There is a mind-blowing supply. So Michael can probably speak to this because he's been to our microfactory. We have 3 chopstick mountains in the factory. And
that happens. Yes.
What we're getting right now is currently exceeding the demand. So we're trying to do, Matthew and the team are doing a great job of balancing kind of what are we bringing in with what can we just press into tiles, because they store a lot easier than those bags full of chopsticks that you saw in the photos. The majority of our restaurants, I would say, are Boston. We have, well, not even majority. So we're probably split Boston, Cambridge, Brookline right now. 25% of our total volume is coming from Chinatown. So it's really great to be talking with developers and folks on projects that are happening in Chinatown right now. I think that could be an amazing story to tell as well. And Susan, I lost track of your questions.
Well, do you give them the equipment to do the collection?
Yes, we provide a box. And so we've got different box options depending on where they want it in their operation. But a bunch of our restaurants have them back near the dishwashing station, and that's where the separation.
So it's back of the store? I mean, back of the house?
Most of them. If you go into a banh mi, you'll see them front because the customers bust their own trash. And we love banh mi, but we don't love customers busting their own trash because the is just so much lower. So it's probably a tenth of what we go to China Pearl and we collect 30 pounds every week in Quincy, and then we go to a banh mi and we're getting 2 pounds every other week, right? But but we also tell small mom and pop restaurants, because they often ask this, does it really matter that we're giving you so little? And we say absolutely. When you look at the collective diverting 20 tons, every little bit really does make a difference.
So back of the house collects, he has a lot of chopsticks, not just the customers. Okay.
So back of the house is the most, because the staff are doing the separation. So sometimes it'll be at the dishwashing station, and sometimes the wait staff will drop it off kind of on the way to the.
Okay. Okay.
But anytime that the staff is handling the separation, the yield is tenfold, I would say.
Thank you.
Aiden?
Hi, thank you for sharing. This is really fascinating. You mentioned that the resin that you're using is water-based and that it's non-toxic. Are you guys trying to do any sort of HBD work, or I guess the other side of that, are you also considering the end of life of your new material itself? Is there a way to recycle it again?
So end of life, we can start there. Matthew, do you want to take that one? We are thinking about it.
Yeah, as far as end of life goes, it's still a work in progress. Through and through, this material is compostable. It is using a water-based resin. So absolute worst case scenario, if it's something that someone didn't want to have in their house anymore, it is a compostable material. What we do with a lot of our offcuts, and even stuff that would be more or less just collecting dust in the shop, that end of life of that material that has already been pressed into a tile or an air chopstick ends up, as much as we possibly can, getting to a compost company to work really well. From everything we've heard, because of our material is high in carbon, dry, it works phenomenal with a lot. We've worked with, I think, coming up on 3, and every single one of them just absolutely, they can't get enough of our stuff. So we're just trying to, get it to the right hands. We do not want to be putting as much of our own material into a landfill as possible. So we go through the added effort of getting it over to a composting company to continue that full cycle into someone's garden, into, the true kind of best way we see that end of life coming to fulfillment. So
the trickier piece with that are the commercial tables and countertops, right? Obviously, we're then coating it with a 2-part urethane or conversion varnish, and so that makes it harder. However, we are, as a company worldwide, really trying to work with our customers to say we will, we're just starting out, so we're not taking any tables back now, hopefully, because they're all doing great within the last year. But fast forward 10 years from now, we would take it back and try to, can we refinish it? Can we make it into something else to use? I have, if something gets damaged in shipping, I'll always try to send a label and say, with the replacement, and say, send the old one back to us and we'll make it into something else, or we'll fix it. And so that's what we're trying to do. In terms of the first part of your question, I'm not sure, I'm still learning on this. So I think you're talking about things like life cycle analysis and the things that go into a lead scoring system. Is that what you're talking about?
I was talking about the healthy aspect, like the red list material free, the chemicals being used. Are you pushing for it to be like a completely healthy material?
I'm just starting to learn about this. So I actually have an MBA team from Babson doing a project right now for us to help figure out, should we do any sort of third-party certifications? Is it worthwhile for us to do that to help contribute to more lead points for a project or things like that? And so they have they have called out that everybody's talking about red list, and so doing the red list might be something that is the lowest hanging fruit for us this year to try to get certified as red list free. But they're due to finish their project in the next few weeks, and I'll get a final presentation, and then we'll make some decisions. As a company, Felix has been very wary of literally buying into any of these kind of certification plans, because it seems to be very fragmented, and there, especially globally, there isn't kind of a single global standard. And so as a company, there's a question of, even because I've gone to them and I said, hey, if we're going to get certified, let's get the material certified and have everybody be able to benefit from that certification. So he's kind of, waiting on that to see if one really emerges or not. So I'm trying to think about, should we do it in Boston? And I'm happy to take any of your advice offline as well. Feel free to email me at what you think might be the best kind of way forward for us on that. We've got to balance being a young company that still, we're tight on cash because we're new, we're just over our first year. And so any one of these could be very expensive for us to take on, although it could be very beneficial to us as well. So I'm curious if there are grants and things out there that will help us cover that as well.
Thank you.
If anyone else has a question, feel free to either type it in the chat or raise your hand. One thing I will say, Elaine, when mentioning kind of, I know the MESS VP is here, although Michael Elliott's here. There are recycling market development grants. There are kind of reduce and reuse grants, really looking to kind of bolster the circular economy and reduce overall kind of waste going, promoting waste diversion. So there's definitely resources that are out there. The one last question that I had before kind of turning back to the group and then thanking you. Do you see any kind of synergies as a kind of a growing circular economy vendor that's looking to kind of work with the AC industry and kind of get these carbon negative products and reduce the waste stream? Have you found any either synergies or partnerships in collaboration with other similar businesses as yourself? Any kind of sort of like a business group or kind of collaborate that is either advocating on your side or found to help logistics, things like that.
From the sustainability perspective, or just in general as we're trying to get launched?
I guess in general, trying to get lost. The bigger point I'll make here, and I think many people in this industry have found, is that we're so used to the typical products. We have these very kind of strong relationships with. We've always procured this. We've always specified this. We've always installed this. And taking a look at new and burgeoning products, especially that are needed to combat the climate crisis, is a bit difficult just because the knowledge isn't there. And as industry and groups like yourself are trying to kind of grow into it, you're facing not only kind of what we're used to, but the kind of the inability to break into those areas. So with ChopValue and kind of other circular economy companies, I'd be curious to know if there's any kind of collaborative work that is being done to kind of represent or break into these circles, because the products you have are so necessary, I would say, to our industry to really decarbonize.
We have not found it yet. So I think, honestly, Michael, I think this group might be the closest that we've come to that, of a group kind of folks in the building and design space that care about this, that is kind of a sizable group. You know, honestly, it's the first presentation that we've done for a group like this. I've done individual presentations at architectural firms and kind of one-offs, and or purchasing teams at universities, things like that, ton of that. But it often just kind of dies on the vine, or the projects are so long term, you know, it's such a long play that I've got to really keep after it, which is something that I'm learning how to do. I'm coming from operations and HR. I'm not a salesperson. Naturally, I'm an introvert. And so like staying on top of like waving and saying like, hey, we're still here, like in front of people is not the most comfortable thing for me to do. So, but oftentimes I'm finding that that's kind of what you have to do in order to kind of get any traction on these products, or have people remember, hey, you're out there. What I'm hearing from the architectural firms is that there's a huge backlog of vendor presentations from, you know, everything kind of shutting down and not happening anymore during COVID to now post-COVID, and there's still a lot of remote work happening. So the vendor presentations on site really aren't happening as much, or they're just happening on Zoom. And so there's just a waiting list that is miles long. So whenever we're able to do one, it's fantastic. And then people kind of say, oh yeah, that's really cool. But then how do we stay front of mind for people so that when the projects come around, you know, it's there? I've looked into things like Material Bank. So could we be listed in Material Bank and, you know, send samples out through there? It's really expensive, I think, for us to do something like that. So I don't think we're ready to do that yet. So I don't know. I think we're thinking about it. And again, any recommendations for groups that we should talk to kind of get this more widely accepted, or make it, you know, turn from concept to reality a bit more, would be super appreciated.
Yeah, I know we have a couple different A&D firms that are on the call right now, and there's definitely a larger group that's part of this like chapter or committee that aren't. And so I think if you can share your deck, and obviously you have some great collateral and images on your website, but I think that what I'm curious about is how can we, like, I love the application of the product as kind of a wall panel. Obviously, table furniture is great, but like, could it be a substitute for just standard millwork? That would be amazing. Like, I'm just thinking, like, what are the other architectural applications for it that, you know, we're more often, like, I want to see it used in a lot more places than just you know, a tabletop or a decorative application. Like, how can we kind of, like, in those doors, was it just a cladding on the doors, or and I'm sorry, but my Zoom crashed earlier when Jean was asking about the fire protection and where you are with that. Can you repeat your answer to that, like, really quickly?
Sure. So the material as is rated B, and then if there are kind of real stringent fire rating requirements, we could always use a fire rated ply, fireproof ply as a substrate. So we're talking with clients about that, or maybe apply a finish on top that would kind of improve the fire rating to get to A or wherever it needs to be. But I would love to hear kind of Matthew's thoughts on the additional architectural applications of the material. He works with material every day and is an art school grad.
Yeah, thank you. It's the world's kind of our oyster with this material. It's incredibly modular to begin with. We have, our raw tile starts out roughly 8 inches by 8 inches square, varying thicknesses for the different kind of products we make to be as efficient as possible. Yes, inherently the overall shape of the tile lends itself to feature walls, like what's behind the lane, thin in nature, expansive in square footage, to really give a wow factor and bring down that that carbon footprint. But we specifically here in Boston, we have been trying to I guess I'd break that mold hypothetically. We've been prototyping with benches, we've been prototyping with shelving units made out of 98% of just our material. I love a good tabletop personally, but there's also an expansive list of things that our material could do. As a woodworker, stuff and designs everything's out there. There's an expansive knowledge of what can be made, and we're just trying to change what it can be made out of. So we did a really, really expensive and super, if I'm biased on the opinion, gorgeous bookshelf for Takeda, where we pulled it off of. The only thing that wasn't our material on it was some threaded inserts for leveling feet at the very, very bottom of the whole thing. So we'll try to shoot over some pictures of that to kind of, give a little bit of a breath of what can be done. So yeah, to your question, the idea of millwork, is inherently elegant. So that is definitely what we're trying to be kind of on par with. It's like maybe just what behind the lane. It's kind of what we're pushing for mostly right now, just to get square footage definitely helps, and all things covering a wall is really, really great. So that idea of what we know we can do, and also we're pushing the envelope to see what else we can do with our materials. So
there are a couple of practical limitations, I would say. So like, people always ask us about flooring. Can this be flooring? And I think from a durability standpoint, yes. From a cost standpoint, no way. Like there's no way that we could compete with the per square foot cost of flooring. This is all handmade stuff. So it's like, so custom millwork is more like where we want to be, or that solid white oak tabletop is like, that's the price point that we just have to be in order to be viable. Curves, I think, or a lot of cutout, like that is really tough, because when you look at, here's a picture that Matthew made that is really beautiful. If you need any hosting guests for Thanksgiving. But as you see, like it's all kind of mashed together. So the more we mess with it, with curves or cutouts, the more it's gonna just, individual pieces are gonna flake out. So we just have to be thoughtful about that kind of thing. Curves are also, just from a waste standpoint, just much more wasteful than square corners. So so those are some of the limitations. But could it be strong enough to be like a support post in a building? Maybe, I don't know. Like, yeah.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah.
If there's any last questions, this has been, I think, a fantastic kind of, I wouldn't say a revelation. I think for a lot of people that are here, that this is kind of an option. So I'll hold the floor for a second. And awesome. So thank you, Elaine and Matthew. We really appreciate you guys taking the time and coming out. We'll look to obviously record this and send this out to the rest of our network. There have been some links that have been shared in the chat. I know Michael Elliott of the Mass DEP put some links to some of the grant programs that are there for recycling and reuse markets. So we'll look to send those out as well. Elaine, if you're okay with it, your contact info out to the group if they want to get right with you.
Absolutely. And just to note, we are funded. So half of my startup funding is from the Massachusetts Recycling Loan Program, which is DEP money. It's actually unclaimed deposits from your bottles and cans, which is, so I think it's just such a good example of the way that government should work. So that goes into a fund that goes to fund businesses that are looking to expand recycling. Which is wonderful, and that's been super helpful. And then we get interns from the Mass Clean Energy Council that are and that is state money trying to pair up high school and college age and immediately post-college students with clean energy companies that are doing that work. So trying to get as much as we can. I know somebody here is from the city. We just got a grant from the Boston Contracting Opportunity Fund. So it's been great. I've been happy to plug into all that, especially coming from the nonprofit world. So anyway, thank you all so much. And Michael, did you say you're going to send me these links, or should I grab them before I drop off?
We'll look to send.
Okay. Okay. And I'll put my contact in the chat. And thank you all so much. It was nice to be with you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We won't keep the rest of the group too long, but definitely something that Laurel and I wanted to get into. So the next meeting will be December 15th. That is the third Friday. I guess the first Friday is December the 1st. Anyways, so at that meeting, we'll look to kind of recap this past year, either recapping kind of regional movement that we have seen, a lot of the presentations that we have shared with this group, and then going into 2024, maybe some big picture. We're still looking for case studies. I know it's on my list to do some of the work that I'm doing and kind of put it to more of a construction case study. But if anyone has any kind of reuse specific case studies, we're looking to kind of conglomerate those and utilize the CLF Boston website as a resource center for anyone who wants to see either forum presentations, different speakers, or kind of connect there as well. So like I said, this next meeting will have a recap of this past year and going into the next year, where we hope to kind of continue to provide presentations like this and value for the regional architects, engineers, and contractors and beyond. Laurel, anything before I let everyone kind of go?
No, I don't think I feel like I always try to close us out on a positive and inspiring note. And I would say it's funny, the timing of this meeting happens to fall every month on. So yesterday we had our architect and design engagement group call for mindful materials. This morning we had our manufacturers engagement group call, and then we have this call. So I'm also like, we got to reschedule these dates for next year. But yesterday we were talking all about circularity, and I was like, oh, this is perfect because this is, I'll be talking about this tomorrow in our CLF group. And we had Andrew Ellsworth from Doors Unhinged, which I think almost everyone here is familiar with him, and with the All for Reuse network. And one of the questions that someone posed to him was, do you see any like areas in the states that are really, pushing forward with deconstruction and circularity and like are doing a good job? And of course he said San Francisco, and he said Minneapolis area. I see Melissa's on the call, and he said in Boston, and he was like, I feel like Boston's really close to kind of like getting ready to crack this. And I was like, hey, Minnesota, Melissa, he called you out specifically. So yes, it was really exciting to hear like from someone who's not in Boston saying like Boston's really, doing well on this. And like, I'm excited to see the conversations that are happening there. So I feel like, I don't know how long ago, Michael, we started this group, but it's been awesome to just kind of be hosting these conversations and to, see how like the appetite for this work has just grown in the last couple of years. And yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited, Susan, that you continue to join us, and Michael Elliott, and all the great conversations that have come out of this group. And I also feel like we're getting, we're going to crack it soon. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, and kudos to you guys, because really it was this group that got me started doing this. And yeah, so thank you. Yeah.
Well, I feel like Michael's like a broken record. We're always saying we need to get some case studies, and we're trying to, we're all like trying to do this in our day-to-day life and in our daily jobs, and it's not easy. There's not an easy button. Obviously, like we have to build these relationships and we have to have these conversations, and the infrastructure needs to be there, and there's a lot of things that need to be in place to make this like happen, but slowly but surely it's getting there. I know that next year there's going to be some major progress on that like infrastructure side of things. We see more and more tools and technologies that are trying to solve this like materials passport, and kind of like a warehouse or a resource center, so that we can actually start to see what's available out there to spec it into our projects. I feel like that's one of the biggest hurdles, and I know that there's a lot of folks on the tech side that are working on that, and our own Barbara Botchalom is working on that with her tool. So I think she just launched a new release of the BE Plus, or the BE Exchange. So I think that that's available. Oh, look, I didn't know you were on, Barbara.
I was stuck at DCAM. Sorry, I
Or
did not
you
want.
just joined when I was just giving you a shout out?
Oh.
Wow.
I
Wow,
love
that was wow, wait.
Just call me and I appear.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if we all just said Barbara's name and she suddenly showed up in our meetings? I think that's a new thing that we need to work on.
I hate to think of what the opposite could be, but yeah.
Well, I was just giving a shout out. Maybe you can share. You mentioned that in our call yesterday about the latest release of the BE Exchange that was going live.
Yeah. It's same like things that you can do, aggregate to take back programs, access resources, services, publish to the public or publish within your own organization, like universities that want to just redistribute all that stuff, but a much sexier and easier and intuitive user interface. So yeah, excited. I'm excited.
And we will include it next month in our kind of recap of the year and the presentation. So probably we might reach out to you just to get all the kind of new info with version 2.0.
Sounds good.
But I think that's it. I think that's it for us. Please expect next week to see, as soon as we can turn around the video, which we hope to always do quickly, but somehow work always gets in the way. And we'll look to send everything out. We'll also, as stated earlier when Elaine was on, we'll look to send out some of those contact details in case any of the designers here are looking to utilize ChopValue going forward for anything from, like I said, those little kind of keepsakes all the way up to feature walls and more. So thank you everyone for coming. If you celebrated, have a great day. Oh, sorry, Laurel.
Wait, since we have just a minute, I was just going to say, to that point, if there is anyone on the call or anyone has someone in their office that has the capability to take this Zoom recording and trim off our small talk at the beginning and add a graphic at the beginning that I can provide, I'm looking for volunteers to help me with that, because as I just mentioned, I have 3 recordings from this week. Every month this happens that I have to process and get uploaded to YouTube. So that would be an amazing volunteer opportunity if anyone knows of anyone that would be interested in doing that. That's all.
Awesome. So thank everyone. We're always looking for help because this is a lot of work, but ultimately worthwhile. It has been good to kind of see all this grow, and we're hoping to kind of continually push this because, as Laurel said, there's so much opportunity, and we're almost there. I think we can do this. So I think with that, we can close. Once again, expect everything next week for a follow-up. And if you have any questions, you should all have our CLF-BOStonreuse @gmail.com. Feel free to reach us there or at our personal emails, which are always CC to the announcements.